Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled to be back at Sewanee, a place I love so much. I hold these conversations, these people, and these swims in my heart all year round. It's an honor to be here tonight reading with Amy, and a huge thanks to Leah, Travis, Adam, and the hardworking staff, and to all of you. I'm deeply moved by how you're already showing up for each other in every way, every day. I'll be reading from Coyoteland, my next novel, which is coming out in May. It's set in the hills east of Berkeley, about a year into the pandemic. It's about territory, predators, and prey. The novel explores wealth, privilege, and the housing market through the eyes of 4 families: Chinese, Guatemalan, Black, and white. This scene comes near the beginning, soon after the Changs, an immigrant Chinese family, have moved into the neighborhood. Coyoteland. Jin Chang studied a hole in the weathered wooden fence spotted with lichen. Some time after the final inspection, a rotted slat had fallen through. Maybe the wind last night had caused it to break off. The air was nosebleed dry, and fires had ignited in the forest a couple hours north. It was only a matter of time until the smoke drifted down and blotted out the sun. He should give the fence a shake to check if anything else had come loose, but he didn't want to add another repair to the long list: slow drains, a gurgling toilet, a sinkhole in the front yard he'd discovered since they'd moved in, all of which would be necessary to fix before he put the house back on the market. He'd found it for Chen, a classmate he'd known since primary school, whose fortunes had wildly diverged from his. They were best friends from childhood, when they'd been close as brothers, sharing what little they had: a steamed bun, a handful of filched plums. Chen, who still lived in Beijing, had gotten rich in real estate and construction. He'd heard about rundown properties selling for a profit in a matter of months in the US, and he wanted to flip a house. Jin, in a moment of desperation, volunteered. Even though Jin was a software engineer, for years he'd combed through online real estate listings, scrutinized county assessor maps and street views, and analyzed comps in a spreadsheet, looked for notices of estate sales for houses that might soon come on the market. Regimes rose and fell, but land offered stability, success, status. He'd long had his eyes on El Nido, and he'd take care of everything, he told Chen, in exchange for a small commission. 187 Rinconcito had been priced below market with a motivated seller. Jin planned to stay in the house through the end of the school year while preparing to flip it, the value almost guaranteed to rise monthly. He could take care of the minor repairs on his own: new paint, new carpet, new outlets, and bathroom fixtures. By the time the house sold, he'd find another in El Nido to rehab. It was bigger inside than it seemed from the street, an expanse that felt opulent to Jin, luxurious. In Fremont, they lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Their daughters slept together on a pull-out sofa. Here they could spread out into the living room, master bedroom, kitchen, and wraparound back deck on the first level, and 3 bedrooms down a steep flight of stairs along the hillside that sloped into a ravine. The stairs had been the undoing of the previous owners, who'd become too frail to navigate them and to maintain the house with its old appliances and avocado and goldenrod. Questionable renovations over the years had given it the look of the Winchester Mystery House, that rambling mansion with stairs to nowhere and doors that opened onto brick walls. The curvy acreage, like a snake writhing down the hillside, made it unsuitable for buyers who may have wanted to raise and replace it. But now Jin wanted to get on a call, which was unexpected. After all, didn't he say he was a busy man and that he trusted no one more than Jin? Jin reached the hole, hoping to retrieve the slat, but his fingers brushed the air. He peeked into his neighbor's backyard at the brick pizza oven, the lemon trees strung with lights, the glimmering pool, and a taupe sectional couch that surrounded the fire pit piled high with tempered glass. Such amenities puzzled him. Why go to the trouble of outfitting your luxury home only to forsake the pleasures of air conditioning? The chickens perplexed him too. The stink, the noise. A flock clucked by the coop, which resembled a miniature farmhouse, off-white with a black peaked roof. A dog barked from inside the house. He wondered if the neighbors kept other pets in their menagerie. As he fetched a board leaning against the garage, an orange cat squeezed through the fence and flicked its tail, regarding him. Though the cat didn't wear a collar, Jin doubted it was a stray. It was too fluffy and well-fed. When he reached for it, it darted away and sat in a patch of sunshine, grooming itself, more at home than Jin felt here. His family was still unpacking, boxes and crumpled newspaper everywhere. When he propped the board against the fence, a splinter pricked his finger. As he dug it out with a thumbnail, he turned to find his youngest daughter, Lily, watching him. "What's that?" she asked. "Don't mess with it," he said. She peered around him. 9 years old, she fiddled with remote controls and knobs on every device, just like Jin had when he'd been a boy. Taking Lily by the shoulders, he steered her away from the fence. "Let's go for a walk," he said. "Can we go to school?" Lily asked. "I can show you I know how to get there." Although the elementary school was only 3 blocks away, they were reluctant to let Lily walk there by herself. Drivers sped, rolled through stop signs, tailgated and crossed double yellow lines on the narrow roads. "You sure?" Jin asked. "Okay." Next door, the garage opened and his neighbor Blair emerged, waving. "You settled in yet?" she asked. "Yes," Jin said. Her question felt like getting ambushed all over again. On move-in day, she'd complained he'd parked in front of her mailbox. Now what? She mentioned that the fire department had issued pre-citations for potential wildfire hazards. "A few days before you moved in," she said. "Maybe you thought it was junk mail?" Jin vaguely recalled something that he'd tossed aside. A pre-citation was not a citation, he reasoned, but a warning, so he could put it off. "My tree guy's coming," Blair explained, to clear away defensible space. "You know what that is?" He nodded, though he wasn't familiar with the term. "Low-hanging branches, bushes too close to the curb, that sort of thing," she said. "To slow down wildfires. When it's super dry and the wind picks up, we really have to keep an eye out." She pointed at the sycamore in the driveway, whose branches drooped over her property line. "Looks like they should come down," she said. Did they? Maybe she just wanted to improve her view. "Thanks," he said. Her mouth dropped open. As he walked away, he almost laughed out loud, thinking of the look on her face. But who made her boss? Queen of the cul-de-sac. She rushed to the sidewalk. "The tree trimmer can take down what's on my side, but you have to thin what's on yours," she said. "I'll look into it," he said. He was being petty, he knew. His wife Kai told him to be more gracious, but Blair was no different than a gorilla thumping its chest. The dominance you established at the beginning defined everything that followed. He clasped Lily's hand and strode off. At the intersection, he said nothing as Lily turned right instead of left, hoping, on one hand, that she would correct her path, but on the other, that she wouldn't, thereby proving she couldn't walk to school on her own. A red Mini Cooper blew past the stop sign, its windows down, music blasting. The neighbor's daughter, speeding again. "You have to watch out," he told Lily. "Listen for what's coming." She promised. At the next stop sign, Lily pointed at a tiny birdhouse on the back, painted in bright reds and blues. He tapped the side. Sturdily constructed, though it wasn't big enough for a bird. At the end of the block, they found a green one, home to a miniature bear family. Papa in a rocking chair, Mama at the stove, and the cubs by the fireplace. It had to be the act of a fanciful neighbor. Lily chattered away in search of more birdhouses, seeming to forget she'd suggested walking to school. Looking down the block, he did a double take, shading his eyes. The tree towered above the street, at least 50 feet tall, the gold coins of the fruit bright against the glossy green leaves. Was it? Could it be? Peepa had the look of small nectarines, with the taste of tangy peaches, and they reminded him of his childhood. Long, hot nights spent eating the juiciest fruits, all the peepa and lychee and watermelon that tasted sweeter than anything he'd had since. On their trips back to China, they never returned in time for the season. They were called loquats here, though they weren't grown commercially in the US. At least, he'd never found them in stores. They were too fragile, easily bruised, and had to be picked at the peak of ripeness. As they approached the tree, its branches seemed to extend themselves in greeting. He nicked a low-hanging fruit with his thumbnail, peeled the translucent skin, and showed Lily the translucent seeds. "You want to try?" he asked. She shook her head. Maybe it wasn't pipa, but a poisonous American cousin. He squeezed the flesh, which felt familiar in his fingers, soft, yet not mushy. He popped it into his mouth, worried that the taste couldn't match his recollection, that it would make him doubt his memory. The bright flavor was sour and sweet. The juicy pipa slaked his thirst, and he reached for another and another, so ripe they came off easily in his hands. Kai loved pipa too. Maybe she would see the pipa as an omen of good fortune, of welcome here. Jin had doubted himself when one tech startup after another had folded, after buying, then losing a home during the recession, after a series of failed investments had left them perpetual renters. Perhaps it was fortuitous that the latest startup went bust, leaving him available to work for Chen. He told no one, not even Kai. Why worry his family when he'd find another job soon? Now he would stuff his pockets, he would return with plastic bags and strip the branches clean. He and Kai would eat and eat and eat. "Dad," Lily said. "Daddy, Daddy, that's stealing." The accusatory look she gave him made him strangely defiant, as if she'd called 911 on him. Was it stealing if no one else wanted it? If his people, like his neighbors, couldn't see the treasure before them? They probably considered such trees ornamental, the fruit a nuisance, fit only for rats, squirrels, possums, and other vermin. Smashed pipa scattered on the street, blown off from last night's wind. A few had fermented in the heat, a jammy rot. The mail truck rounding the bend startled him. He didn't know if it was coming or going to the house. He had to intercept the mail, finish unpacking, get started on repairs, and prepare for Chen's call. Instead, he'd quarreled with his neighbor. Instead, he'd been daydreaming. "Do you know where the school is?" he asked Lily. She bowed her head, but didn't answer. He tugged her arm towards home. He walked too fast, and she ran to keep up. "Dad," she cried, "Daddy!" He didn't slow down. He didn't turn around. Longing cut through him, sharp enough to steal his breath. His future success at once seemed so ripe for the picking, but as close as his fingers might have come, he never could quite reach it. So in the novel, the fates of four families collide. The Changs, who we just heard from, as well as the Millers, the Rodriguez, and the Washingtons. The next excerpt, which takes place a couple days later, is from the point of view of Tasha Washington, a teenager. Like me, she began foraging in the pandemic. Are there any foragers in the audience? There are hickory and apple and pear trees all over Sewanee, and in some years, tons of chanterelles. In this scene, Tasha is headed to the track of a local high school, which is ringed by bay laurel trees. In the hour before sunset, the light was low and slanting. Dry grass crunched beneath her feet as Tasha approached the bay laurel and plucked a handful of leaves. They were scented like menthol, cool as the fog that poured like cream over El Nido's hills. A laurel could live more than 200 years, a human 80 or 90 if they were lucky. Looking at a tree was like time traveling, Tasha thought. When you leaned against the trunk and sat in its shade, you reached toward those who planted it, and they'd reach towards you. She stuffed a few leaves in her electric blue fanny pack, a gift from her mother. The many zippered compartments held her finds and kept her hands free while foraging. Technically, she should ask for permission to pick here, but she didn't know the property lines and couldn't bring herself to ask. To do so risks getting doors slammed in her face or never opened to her at all. In the first month of lockdown, she'd stumbled upon the Black Forager, an online influencer who sang silly songs and made pesto out of hairy bittercress and sorbet from Japanese knotweed. It turned out that preppers weren't all white weirdos who stashed canned butter and built bomb shelters. Tasha's interest might have remained aspirational until she came upon a stand of wild fennel, catching the dark scent of licorice from yards away. She'd been so tired of their apartment, so tired of the same canned and frozen foods from the supermarket, the monotony into infinity. And so she'd brushed her fingers on the feathery fronds, which looked just like the ones in the video, then broke one off and sniffed, tentatively, then deeply, its scent spicy and warm as gingerbread before plucking a handful. She now checked on her little brother Marcus, who was crouched down, intent on something on the field. She jogged over. He poked a pill bug, watching it roll into a ball. "Enough," she said. "How would you like to get poked over and over?" When Marcus remained crouching, she poked him in the side. He tumbled on the grass in the center of the track, rolling into a ball, then rocked onto his back. Soon after they moved to El Nido, when his second grade teacher suspected that he might have ADHD, their mother had wondered aloud to Tasha if there might be another reason he caught his teacher's attention. He was the only black kid in the class and one of a handful in the entire school, young for his grade too, born weeks before the official cutoff, while other parents held back their children. Some were nearly a year older than him. If he'd been a girl, if he'd been white, would the teacher have viewed him as spirited instead? Their mother reluctantly got him diagnosed. They'd noticed he was a klutz, and it turned out that clumsy motor skills, as well as walking on his toes and double-jointed arms, were correlated with neurodivergence. Meds helped, but were no cure. There were studies, she told Tasha, about how the outdoors could ease his inattention and anxiety. When Tasha reached to help him up, he poked her in the leg. Playing along, she dropped to the ground, tucking in her knees onto her back. She stretched her arms and legs as far as they could go, like a starfish, then flipped over onto her stomach, getting onto her hands and knees to stretch. She closed her eyes. The field radiated heat from the day, giving off the scent of sunshine, of hay. Something brushed against her calf. Marcus poking her again? Except that it didn't feel like his finger. It was bushy, as if he'd picked up something prickly to poke her with. She ignored him. Then he pinched her. "Quit it," she said. Something swished in the grass, moving away from her. When she looked up, Marcus now stood a few feet away, his eyes wide with terror. In the distance, she heard a high, thin scream. "Hey, hey, hey, go away!" From the corner of her eye, a dark mass came at her, panting. Grass crackled underfoot. "Run, Marcus," she shouted. She tried to get up, to get away, but then needles plunged deep into her leg. Turning, she couldn't believe her eyes. What looked like a scrawny dog had latched onto her left calf, its eyes in eerie gold. She kicked at it with her other leg, but she couldn't reach it from this angle. It growled and clamped on tighter. Blind with pain, she punched it in the jaw, her fist slamming against what felt like fur and teeth. Her hand wet with saliva or blood. She went woozy, suffocating in its musky, wild scent. Footsteps, a whirl, a thud, a whimper, and then she saw nothing. "Look big," authorities advised the public afterwards. Tasha would be the first, but not the last of the people that the coyote would attack in the months that followed, often at dawn or dusk, always those low to the ground, a dishwasher sitting on the curb during his break, a toddler trailing behind his mother. Look big. Yell, wave your arms, pop open an umbrella, rattle pennies in a soda can, throw something. Look big. But what if people already thought you were bigger, older, louder, angrier than you actually were? Girls treated like women, boys transformed into men. What if people, in any face-off, viewed you as the bear, the mountain lion, the coyote? The teenager in braids at the swimming pool in Texas, the family trying to have a barbecue at Lake Merritt, the bird watcher in Central Park. Menaces all. And how do you remember to look big if you otherwise tried to make yourself invisible in El Nido, if you were invisible most of the time, until you sharply came into focus? Thank you. And now, Amy Leach.
Thank you, Vanessa. Your words are very alive. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm so glad to be here with you all. I'm going to read a few excerpts from my memoir called The Salt of the Universe. This is from a chapter called Adventists Are Like People. Once, I was only 16 Mormons away from discovering that Mormons are heterogeneous. I took an ethnography class in graduate school and chose Mormons as my subject because I had heard them called homogeneous, and I wanted to find out if that was true. I would take my question to them personally. I asked Mark, "Hey Mark, are you homogeneous?" And he said he wasn't. And I asked Marjorie, "Hey Marjorie, are you homogeneous?" And she assured me that no, she was not homogeneous. And from the other interviews I conducted, and also from going on a hayride with a bunch of heterogeneous Mormons, I concluded in my final essay that Mormons are like people. Probably if I had chosen to do my ethnographic research on men or magicians, my conclusion would have been the same. Men are like people. Magicians are like people. If I had studied beauty queens or hillbillies or Jesuits or the population that lives along the Banana River, or even soldiers for whom homogeneity is an ideal, I think all my essays would have had the same thesis. I think I would have been a one-theory ethnographer. I hate Adventists, a Unitarian minister once told me when I told her I had grown up Seventh-day Adventist. But she might as well have said, "I hate people." Because Adventists are like people. Some are like sheep, and some are like goats. Some are submissive, some are subversive, some are good regurgitators, while others are not. Some Adventists are apocalypse happy, and some are apocalypse sad, and some are apocalypse indifferent. Some keep their minds on the second coming, and some keep their minds on money, and some are distractible by shooting stars. But anyway, it's apparently okay to hate people as long as you hate them in sections. One time, I sat down in a fancy restaurant with some academics who, when I said I was from Texas, declared, "I hate Texas, and I hate Texans, and I do too." Of course, their problem, like the Unitarian minister's problem, was that they had never met my grandfather, an autonomous, heterogeneous, subversive Adventist Texan who did not hate people, even in sections. He told my brother and me when we were little that he liked us because we reminded him of people. So, prophets are like people too. They come in all stripes. You've got your power prophets and polygamous prophets, moony prophets and miserablest prophets. You've got your golden bird prophets and poop-eating prophets, and William Blake, who as a child saw angels gallivanting in the trees. There's Mr. Quimby with his Quimbyists and Mr. Flurry with his Flurryists, and Ellen G. White, who counseled her followers to never, ever resort to eating pickles. Ellen White was the prophet assigned to me, but as soon as I could, I exchanged her for Emily Dickinson. I guess if you have no pull, you have to push. Our moon, the moon, being so big, does not need to come down and push the ocean around, but a mini moon would have to do that. Personally, I prefer pulley moons to pushy moons, and pulley people to pushy people. Ellen White was a very pushy prophet compared with Emily Dickinson, hiding behind her hyacinths. Ellen White was also very verbose in comparison with Emily Dickinson. Boy, will she give you an earful. But the funny thing is that Ellen White led me to Emily Dickinson because I was teaching literature at an Adventist college that followed Mrs. White's injunctions against reading fiction. And so I omitted the novels and stories I normally would have taught and instead taught poetry by Emily Dickinson, Word Ninja. And I realized that although I do not like to be pushed, I really like to be pulled. Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from an essay called Earth Enough. They're always telling you not to bottle up your fury, as if fury were the only thing you could bottle up. But think about the furious people bottling up their tranquility, the mopey people bottling up their mirth, the listless people bottling up their avidity, their alacrity, their fizz. Will they explode one day like champagne? Or think of the grim people bottling up their adoration, the ones who wouldn't throw bouquets at anything. If they had a room full of bouquets, those bouquets would all wither and rot. Some people bottle up their joy better than others do. One winter, when I was little, my mother and I watched the Olympic figure skating competition on television. I remember one woman who skated scrupulously, perfectly, accurately. Her skating was accurate to 12 decimal points. Only, she did not seem to enjoy skating. And watching her made me feel so nervous, so worried she would fall down that I kept hiding my eyes and whimpering. She never fell, but it was no fun to watch her. She was painfully perfect. Then there was another skater who fell down several times. Skate, skate, crash. Skate, skate, splat. Except she skated with so much joy that I forgot to worry about her. Her crashes were immaterial, incidental, maybe even a corollary to her exuberance. If she were a soup maker, she'd always be falling in the soup. Hers was the trajectory of a champagne cork. Propelled by joy, she was better than perfect. And it seemed that if a great hand had reached down and removed that Olympic arena and all the crews and all the cameras and all the spectators, she would hardly have noticed she was a what-the-hell skater. Like those teenage monkeys who fall flamboyantly out of trees. Like Abraham, who's always falling on his face. And here are a couple of Bible texts. Abraham fell face down. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed. And this was in response to God telling him he was going to have a baby at age 100. Babies are good jokes. All right, I'm going to read another excerpt from... Thank you. I'm going to read another excerpt from an essay called Hail Nothing Full of Nothing. Fulminating about the meetings in the book of Isaiah, God says monthly conferences, weekly Sabbaths, special meetings. Meetings, meetings, meetings. I can't stand one more. Meetings for this, meetings for that. I hate them. You've worn me out. God and Solzhenitsyn and Crazy Horse are simpatico. Here's a quote by Larry McMurtry in his book about Crazy Horse. For almost the whole of his life, Crazy Horse avoided all parleys, councils, treaty sessions, and any meeting of an administrative or political nature, not merely with whites, but with his own people as well. Crazy Horse is being chiseled into Thunderhead Mountain in South Dakota. The chiseling has been going on for about 72 years now, and so far he has a face. As much as he loved mountains, as much as he avoided being photographed, Crazy Horse might not appreciate a mountain being effaced with his face. But at least they're not carving 3 other faces cheek to cheek with him like they did to those poor dudes down the road in a never-ending meeting. Also, They're gonna give him his horse. Someday he will have a horse as well as a face. I wish I had a horse as well as a face. In Shakespeare's plays, people are always saying, to horse, to horse. And I wish I were like Malcolm or Lord Ross or Prince Henry and had a horse to back me up when I say, to horse, to horse. For example, when there's a meeting to attend. To horse, to horse. When the children are taking a break from being good. To horse, to horse. When a party-sized bag of salted peanuts has spilled into the deep shag carpet. If I had a horse, I would to horse with all my heart. However, as I have no horse, I am free to refer to alternative animals. To yak, to emu, to hippopotamus, except I never say to elephant, because once in Mexico, no kidding, an elephant picked me up with her trunk, and instead of running away with me, pounding through the mahogany forest, splashing through lagoons, trundling over mountains, delivering me finally to the beach, she just stood there, dangling me by the wrist. Elephants don't abscond with you. They just dangle you in the air. Sometimes I say, to Melville, or to piano. But I never say to organ, because as the church organist, I can produce no freedom and no speed. I don't even attempt to play box music on the organ anymore, because every time I tried, I would look out the window and see him walking away in his long blue frock coat, leaving the church premises. When I press the keys, I can't push the stops. When I push the stops, I can't play the pedals. And when I'm playing the pedals or pushing the stops, I can't play the keys. Neither can I switch between the several manuals of keys without losing a measure or two. Playing the organ feels like pushing buttons, like the buttons on the dashboard of a 747 in a tailspin. Thus petrified and with no dynamics, I am able to only sound strident. Stridently loud, stridently stupid. One Epiphany Sunday, I thought I knew We Three Kings by heart, so I didn't bother to bring the music to church. But then during the service, I got flustered and forgot a whole line, the line where they sing, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. So, instead of playing the right notes, I played the wrong notes. There are 5 verses to that song, and that particular line eluded me every time around, and I played notes that were stridently wrong. Gabriel Fauré was a church organist away from whom Bach did not walk, except sometimes he ran. Because when Fauré was a boy, the music college he attended had just one big practice room with 15 pianos in it. And from the racket of 15 boys practicing 15 different pieces on 15 different pianos, what composer wouldn't have run away as fast as he could? After Fauré grew up, he played with a more reasonable number of musicians, one, an organist named Widor, and to hear the two of them improvising together on 2 church organs, Johann Sebastian Bach must have come loping back. Bach, he comes and he goes. One piano is better than 15 pianos, but 2 organs are better than 1 organ. And the ideal number of instruments is, of course, 3. One time I had come up with this bewitching chord pattern on the piano. D, D major 7, G, D major 7, repeat, A, B minor, G, D major 7, repeat. I played it over and over, and a few melodies materialized and were tripping lightly around my living room like flappers. However, after a few days I was starting to get bored, the melodies were starting to get languid. So I invited a clarinetist and a flutist to come over and play with me, and then so many melodies showed up, slinky melodies, somersaulting melodies, flamboyant melodies, minimalist melodies who just winked. This is the kind of meeting I really like, where everybody has an instrument. One April night when I was in college, a guitarist, a mandolinist, and I climbed onto the dorm roof with our instruments. And for several hours, we invented music under the stars. Where it was pretty, it was triply pretty. And where it was sad, it was triply sad. And all of it was triply new and triply ephemeral. You are the music while the music lasts, said Eliot. Now, if you play music that's written down like a mazurka by Scriabin, you can be the music over and over. You can be the mazurka as many times as you like, simply by turning back to the first page and playing it again. This is true even of Scriabin's impromptus, reproducible because they're not really impromptu. However, with truly impromptu music, like our mandolin, violin, guitar music that night, Eliot's statement is piercing. Still, I say there's something of the music that lasts, even when the music is over. A long time ago, I read a novel that contained a detail so repulsive it obscured the rest of the book in my mind. And even now, when I think about that novel, all I can remember is that one revolting detail. But the reverse phenomenon can happen too. One sublime detail can outshine hundreds of wretched pages. Just as a few hours of winging it under the stars can transcend so many days of drudgery, those days that usually ensue after one has climbed down from the roof. Okay, I'm going to read a few of the what I'm calling riffs that salt and pepper the book. Donkey. Donkey used to rhyme with monkey, but now it rhymes with honky. El Concerto. I've always liked how animals confuse religion and music confuses science. And I really like how the owl, being both animal and musician, confuses both religion and science. My parents rolled out the red carpet for me, and they did. Upon being born, I said, "Hello! I am not a general baby. I am a particular baby. I don't know if I'm your dream baby, but I am me." And I was a little worried because dream babies are often general babies, but in reply, my parents said I was their dream baby. My parents are very open-minded. The Escandalosissimo Waltz. It is scandalous how the next generation is always waltzing in and taking over. Even when they were pea-sized, my babies took me over, body and soul. Babies are such waltzers in. Immortals can afford to be mincing. I'm too old to mince words, wrote Marilyn Robinson, but hey, really couldn't any of us, young or old, say, I'm too mortal to mince words. The English fundamentalists. As E. E. Cummings pointed out, some virtues are mutually exclusive, like you can either be a good grammarian or a good kisser. But not both. Who pays any attention to the syntax of things will never wholly kiss you. Something within me. The Bee Gees sang about how the woman in you brings out the man in me, but I like to sing about how the poodle in you brings out the groomer in me. Nobody going off on tangents. Shakespeare said, the wiser, the waywarder. In this world you will have trouble. I wonder what Jesus would have said to people who visit the moon. I hear there's trouble there too. And so to Jesus' statement, I would add, on the moon you will have trouble. Our transience is our tragedy. I'm halfway through my stint as a person and am discovering that age is as heritable as youth. Our transience is our tragedy. My children were born like 15 minutes ago, and already they're saying things like, I have my doubts about leprechauns. Our transience is our tragedy. The days are like dominoes, baby. Our transience is our tragedy. So hop to it. To be. To be is called an auxiliary verb, but I say it's all the other verbs that are auxiliary. Schmoozing, boozing, beaning, sponging, sniggering, snogging, dithering, blithering, bellowing, wallowing, harumphing, pestering, punking, primping, pocketing, plummeting, ribbiting, gibbeting, jabbering, buttering, puttering, petering, muttering, spoofing, splooshing, smooching, etc. All these activities being auxiliary to being. Memoir school. When I was in graduate school, the coolest thing for a writer to be was transgressive. But now, 20 years on, it seems like writers are praised more for being responsible. Transgressive is out, responsible is in. Oh, the vicissitudes of cool. People on the internet, inhabitants of the internet are always having a cow. Some of them even manage to have several cows per day. The internet is quite a cow factory. My followers, okay, I'm almost done. My followers used to all be dogs, and I spoke mostly gibberish. After children started following me around, I had to start speaking English all day long. It's a lot of work. Gibberish comes far more naturally to me. Forte is their forte. I was writing this about babies, as in being loud is what they're good at. Like the baby who lives across the street from me. As soon as he could crawl, he would crawl over to the stereo and turn the volume all the way up. That baby's right. The only problem with most music is that it's not loud enough. If you don't like a song, just turn it up. It can work for books too. Like if you didn't like this book, try reading it again, but shouting it to yourself. So if you still don't like my book after shouting it to yourself, that's okay, I understand. Sometimes I'm not on my wavelength either. Somebody made some wombats. How fanciful is a wombat? How fanciful is a person? How fanciful we must appear to the stones, we Edwards and Howards going backwards and forwards. To the stone, the geologist must seem so fanciful with all her volition. Of course, the 6-year-old geologist has not yet forgotten how fanciful he is, or how fanciful everything is. Sometimes he puts on swim goggles and takes a hammer to the stones, smashing into their fancifully sparkly hearts. Somebody made some wombats. The maker of wombats, somebody who expresses himself in wombats, now there's a god I can get behind. A pushy prophet. To Ellen White, as to other pushy people, I say, back off, lady. But I never say that to God because God is not officious. To God I say, thank you for the stars. I asked him for the answers, but he gave me the stars. So I say, thank you for the stars. Thank you.